From acclaimed writer Charles Soule comes a brand new exhilarating series exploring Darth Vader's early history. Picking up directly from our favorite movie, Star Wars Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith, we follow Vader as he receives his legendary red lightsaber and witness Vader's rise to power as a Dark Lord of the Sith. It's a new episode of our book club because your Geek History lesson is now in session. Hello and welcome to Geek History Lesson. I am Jason Inman.
I'm Ashley Victoria Robinson. Welcome to your Mind University, because you have stumbled onto the podcast where we take one character, construct, or Sith Lord from popular culture and teach you everything you need to know about them in about an hour, except this week, because it's book club week, so we're not doing that.
Yeah. Actually, we're talking about a book called Star Wars. It's called Star Wars Darth Vader.
Star Wars, Darth Vader,
This is a long title.
Imperial Machine, Volume 1.
What does that mean, Imperial Machine? What do you think that means to you?
I think it means that, as we see when he's projected into the Force, a good amount of him is a machine, and I think it's also perhaps a haughty meta-narrative title dealing with the fact that he is serving only the Imperial interests and no longer his own.
You put a lot more thought into that title than I did. I just was like, that's weird.
I have an English degree.
Well, speaking of people that may or may not have English degrees, we have a very special guest because we're going to talk about Star Wars Darth Vader because it is the time of the Star Wars now. The holiday season is usually the time of the Star Wars. And we brought in a very special guest, a returning guest. He is the author of Why We Love Star Wars, the hit book, the host of the Napzok Files podcast, and the newish host, by this time of this recording, of Collider Jedi Council. Please welcome Ken Napzok.
Happy to be here, Jason. Ashley, I love coming to your studio because I end up getting distracted looking at all the toys and looking at all the things I want from your shelves. But great to be back.
I know based on last year's comments, and when I said, who do you want to have on the podcast or back on the podcast, people are excited that you're here. In addition to, of course, us being excited.
Well, I'm humbled by that, but happy to be back. And it was a great chance for me to revisit this book we're going to discuss.
Yes, when we said we were going to do a Star Wars comic, Jason said, it has to be a Darth Vader comic. And then he said, it has to be this one, not the other one.
Well, I don't want to get too ahead of our discussion, but yeah, it has to be a Darth Vader book because these books are pretty damn good. I may be getting away my thoughts already, but I don't care because that's exactly what a Sith Lord would do. Let's get right into this, everybody. But before we get right into this, I just want to remind everybody that the comic drive for service members is still hot and heavy. If that's appropriate.
I don't know if it is.
Well, I'm a service member, so I'm sticking with it. Right now, guys, Jawiin Comic Book Drive for service members is still going strong. You can get all the details at comicdriveforservicemembers.com. On any of our Twitters, we have updated counts. We need your help to send 15,000 comics to the service members for this holiday season. We have some special donations from Archie Comics and Boom Studios. They have agreed to donate, and we'll be talking about that everywhere on Twitter. So, again, send your comic books. Don't leave them in your closet. Don't leave them in your long box. Send them to the service members. comicdriveforservicemembers.com. Let's do that. Do that for the Imperial Machine.
Do it because it's our 5th year doing this. It's our 5-year anniversary. We're trying to do bigger and better than ever.
Yes. All right, so let's jump into the 10-cent origin on this book. Ashley, what's a 10-cent origin?
The 10-cent origin is the first part of the podcast where we take you through all the basic things you need to know in case you go to a really cool Star Wars-themed cocktail party and someone asks you what this volume's about.
This book, Star Wars Darth Vader, Dark Lord of the Sith, Volume 1, The Imperial Machine. Damn, that title, so many colons. It was written by Charles Soule. It was art by Giuseppe Camuncoli?
Pretty sure you nailed that.
His art is great. It was originally printed in November of 2017. Of course, it is a Marvel Comics. The synopsis is, from acclaimed writer Charles Soule comes a brand new exhilarating series exploring Darth Vader's early history. Basically, this is Darth Vader 6 issues after Episode 3, The Revenge of the Sith. This, of course, we're talking only about Darth Vader 1 to 6, written by Charles Soule. This is technically Darth Vader Volume 2, I guess.
Even though it says Volume 1, it's the first volume where Charles Soule takes
it's the first
over.
volume of Charles Soule, even though this is technically Star Wars Darth Vader Volume too. So
If I were artist Giuseppe of the impronounceable last name, I would contact Amazon because they said that Jim Jung is the artist. He is the cover artist.
he's a cover artist, yes.
And a good friend of the podcast.
So let's hop into this. Let's talk about it. We can loosely go our thoughts, themes, characters. By the way, if you've not read this book, there are going to be full spoilers for a book that came out 2 years ago. So get ready. So I want to talk about this. This is not the first Darth Vader Marvel comic book series. This is the second Marvel Comics series. Now, the first one began post A New Hope, and it filled in the movies of Episode 4 and Episode 5. This one
They went in original production order. They did the original trilogy and then the prequels.
This one is post Episode 3. And so much so that the opening of this series is a scene from Episode 3. Of course, the scene that everybody loves, Darth Vader walking around like a Frankenstein and going, no! What do we think about them or Charles Soule picking this moment as the start of this new series?
I think what's really intelligent about it is it immediately grounds it in a timeline. It's sometimes tough with comic books or novelized tie-ins because you're dealing with the liminal space between the two things that you're already most familiar with. So this immediately, right off the bat, tells us not only is this set in a different time than the preceding Darth Vader series, but where exactly in the story of the movies this is set. And I love getting Padme right on page one. I'm a huge Padme stan, read her book earlier this year, loved it. So for me, that was a really, really cool detail of that opening page.
I love where it starts. And Ashley, you just said something really smart about it grounds it in a timeline. I'm going to add to that, say it grounds it in some sort of reality, tackling a moment that even me, a Star Wars fan who has a reputation, sometimes good, sometimes bad, of really loving everything about Star Wars. I wasn't a huge fan of the stomp, no.
But you're a prequelist. I think we established the last time you were here, which means you enjoy the Star Wars prequels.
Enjoy them. I think there's a lot to take from them. A lot of my favorite Star Wars moments are there, and there's a lot in Revenge of the Sith I love. And it's not that I don't get the point of the last moment of Revenge of the Sith, but it's clunky, right? Literally. Literally clunky. Yeah. I think for them to jump right in right after that and go, hey, we know you don't like that moment, but we're going to build off of it and ground it in some reality and start talking about the pain that Anakin Skywalker, now Darth Vader, was in this moment, and it pulls you in, and immediately, and you talk about the Padme shot.
Yeah.
Immediately, I was like, oh, we're not shying away from the prequel stuff. We're not shying away from his past. We're diving right in.
I agree with you, Ken. I think the prequels have a lot of good stuff in them, and I think a lot of people like it is popular to crap on the prequels, and I say that there is a lot of good themes. There are a lot of good story beats. It's the overall execution that doesn't work. The interesting thing about this to me is right out the gate, if you've read Star Wars Darth Vader Volume 1, the Kieran Gillen series, if you haven't, it's amazing. It is so good. It is actually the book that changed my mind on Star Wars comic books because I looked at them as just purely tie-ins and not that interesting. Like they can't affect real change in the Star Wars universe because they're not a movie. Star Wars Darth Vader Volume 1 did some amazing things by working on the silence of Vader. There are so many scenes in that first volume about Vader in his silence. Charles Soule, immediately out the gate with that Padme shot, establishes that this Darth Vader series is going to be about the memories of Vader.
Dare I say the inner monologue.
Exactly. Like in this series, there's a lot of cutaways. Yeah. Whereas, like, it's interesting that in again, the Kieran Gillen series, they would have just left that as a silent panel. Charles Soule's like, no. I'm going to fill that in. I'm going to tell you exactly what Vader is thinking about. And slight spoilers here, but not really majorly. If you have read this entire series, which I have, all 25 issues, the first page is referenced by the last scene of this series. And I think that is genius and also shows that Charles Soule had planned. You can tell Charles Soule's planned most of this book out.
Plan your comics when you write them. Jason and I are living in that right now. Yeah. Oh, no. Hopefully that'll be out soon.
Yeah, I'm staring at some spoilers on your wall right now.
Full spoiler. Ken is actually looking at the dry erase board that is full of Jupiter Jet 2 spoilers right now.
Looks great. But it's a smart point. And this is you guys right now, both of you are speaking from experience. experience. And I think it's important to note, Charles Soule wrote the Lando 5-issue series that came out. And he put some stuff in there that he was like, oh, I get to pay that off. And that's later on. So we're not talking about that.
And in this book, I think, and probably the Lando book as well, he's now been announced as the writer of the main Star Wars title now.
I'm very thrilled with that.
Sorry.
No, because the main line kind of went to some weird spots. The first Vader volume did too. Like there's some weird space whale stuff and some cyborg stuff.
I do love the space whales. I do love the space
whales.
Look, Star Wars Rebels has a lot of space whales in it, so that is canon.
Okay, just to go off on that tangent for a second, that was the first episode where I thought Ezra was a character worth a damn. Was this one with the space whales?
But I do want to talk
stuff. Don't get me wrong, but
Charles Soule, I think, is a really great writer. He's also a very friendly gentleman. So if you ever get to meet him at a comic convention, go say hi. He's a super friendly dude.
I will.
Also, let's talk about a comic book is not just a writer. Comic book is a collaboration. Let's talk about the art of Giuseppe Camuncoli. I feel so bad.
I think it's Camuncoli.
Camuncoli
would be the sort of American name.
I feel so bad that I am saying his name wrong because I actually really like his art.
You don't have to feel bad because it's a box on the bingo card is sorry we mispronounced your name.
Oh yes, that's true. The GHL bingo card. That's correct. But I actually think his art is very interesting because it lives in that perfect realm for me. I'm a fan of comic book art that's not too cartoony, not too realistic. Now, again, it's hard not to compare the series constantly to Darth Vader Volume 1, the Kieran Gillen series. That was drawn by Salvador Larroca, who is amazing, but also very photorealistic.
Very,
Yes.
So I thought it was interesting to see the tone shift. What did you guys think about Giuseppe's art?
I think it really, really shines when we get to do the cool alien off-world stuff, which is my favorite stuff about Star Wars. Like Ninth Sister looks incredible. The two Jedi Masters that we meet and the worlds that they're inhabiting and the libraries look incredible. I read this volume right after I finished the second OG Darth Vader hardcover, and it is a big shift when you're moving from the first series into this. But I think for this story, in particular for this story that is wordier and more action-based, I think it really works.
There's a lot of action in there. You're right. I remember when this started, the Emperor's face, I was like, okay, this is different. This is different. But I'm on board, and I think it's a testament to the art. It just kind of fades away in my mind where it's not a problem. And I'm not saying it was a problem, but just like you don't recognize your look. You're just so pulled into the world he created.
Now, there's something, Ken, I specifically want to ask you about. Some people would call you a Star Wars expert.
I've just been around a long time.
Okay. All right.
I would call you a Star Wars
Your
expert.
Honor, permission to treat the witness as hostile?
Permission granted.
Thank you, Your Honor. Of course, Ashley is the judge of this podcast.
Yes.
Yeah, people follow me on Twitter. They know what's up.
I mean, you do have the most college degrees, I think, of everybody on this podcast right now.
I dropped out of college to go start my radio career, and that worked out really well. So.
I think your podcast career is a testament to that, Ken.
It took a while, but yeah.
And your Patreon.
So my question to you, Ken, is that this comic series, these 6 issues, introduce a new aspect to Star Wars canon. And now, since these comic books are Star Wars canon, they are officially accepted, there's no more expanded universe. They introduce this idea that the Sith do not build their own lightsabers. The Sith capture a Jedi's lightsaber and then corrupt it. Is that correct?
Bleed the blade. Sorry, Ashley, did I step on? You were going to drop it.
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing. That's
you can
fine.
You can say it if you want as a Sith, if you'd like.
Oh, man, I'm not the one who does voices. They make it bleed.
There you go.
Hopefully the microphone picked that up.
Yeah.
It's funny. Fun fact, I think I am the only Jedi on this podcast right now.
See, this is funny because I would be the one who would drop out of Jedi training and I would go the Ahsoka route because I also want the backward-facing lightsabers, but I couldn't complete
but you mentioned Ahsoka. That's actually the first time we heard in New Star Wars canon, E.K. Johnston's book about Ahsoka. She has to recover her lights, right?
That's right.
So that's
it's
the
so
first
cute
time.
how they try to pretend like she's not building a lightsaber. She's just collecting these things that are speaking to her.
She bleeds the blade, and that kind of created this huge uproar in Star Wars fandom. No, Sith have synthetic kyber crystals. This has been established. And it's like, well,
was that established in like a previous novel?
It was establishing in Legends, and what is now Legends.
Yes.
They made this switch, and I got to tell you, I didn't have an opinion either way. I was one of those people who was like, I thought there was a synthetic kyber crystal. All right. This is, I don't know. other than you just want to hold on to knowledge you had and had over someone, I don't know why you wouldn't take to this, because it's really dramatic. It's really dark. It involves pain. You have to.
Sorry to interrupt.
No.
I think I love it because it physicalizes Anakin's journey.
Yeah. Yeah, and Ahsoka had to unbleed, to be clear, she had to unbleed the blades in a way, which is why hers were clear, white, so to speak. So when this is introduced, and for the first time we see it really upfront and personal, and Vader's got to go not just take a lightsaber, he's got to go put his pain into it. I'd much rather have that than, here is a synthetic crystal I built in my lab.
I bought this at the 7-Eleven.
No, he 3D printed it. Come on.
Yeah, exactly.
I found these at Costco, Vader.
Yeah, exactly. This is pretty dramatic and in keeping with some of this is something I think George Lucas would be like, yeah, they bleed him. Maybe.
Your George Lucas sounds a little Kermit. I like it.
It's a little Kermit. Yeah, hi-ho, I built the Force. Yeah.
Would Kermit be a Jedi or a Sith?
Kermit would be the most pure of all
Yeah.
Jedi. Kermit's Yoda.
What Muppet would be, what non-Star Wars Muppet would be a Sith?
Animal. Animal, and fun fact, Grover.
Oh, yeah. I'm also going to, here's my hot take, Elmo.
Elmo?
Elmo's the Sith.
I think Dr. Teeth is a Jedi, too, though. He's kind of
Yeah. This has been Muppet Corner.
And we all know that Sweetums is the job of the hut.
Oh, you can make Sweetums a gangster?
Yeah. But he'd be innocent about it. He'd be like, oh, gosh, I'm sorry I tried to kill you.
Sweetums scared me as a child when I saw the Muppet movie.
I think that's the correct way to feel as a tiny human. Yeah.
Oof.
All right, back to things that aren't Muppets. Welcome.
There are Muppets in Star
Thanks for
Wars.
Muppet Corner. There's a moment here in issue 2 of this series that I want to talk about, and it's basically where Vader goes to the ship, and there are all these stormtroopers there, and these stormtroopers are, I guess at this time they would be called. Well, it's the Empire, so they'd be called stormtroopers.
Yeah, but no.
But they are all clones.
Yeah. They are clones. Yeah.
But it's an interesting aspect of the Star Wars universe that I never thought about, just like the Red Blade. The fact that all these stormtroopers, all these Imperial officers would be like, who the hell is this Vader guy?
Yeah.
Who are you?
Because we're introduced to him in Star Wars, in A New Hope, where status quo, everyone knows who he is, what his status is, and how powerful he is. So to explore this new reality, I think is really interesting. And there's a moment a little later on where he goes, I don't know what to call you, Sir, General. And he says, you can call me Lord. Yeah.
Yeah, but I love that the stormtroopers, they see the lightsaber and they're just like, blast him.
Yeah.
But when you think about that, you're right. It brings, I hate to say, the politics into Star Wars because...
Oh, say it.
Wait, comics aren't political, Jason.
Well, the prequels are 100% political. So it's this idea that Palpatine is a legitimate official. Now, he's held onto his power corruptly. So the idea that this guy shows up, this guy in a black cape that nobody knows because nobody knows he's Anakin Skywalker, and he has a lightsaber, it does make sense that it would be the same thing as if... Zorro showed up in our government and suddenly was the vice president. Everybody'd be like, how is Zorro the vice president? How did that happen?
Yeah. You know what? I'd take it. Zorro. We would have a Mexican vice president. How cool would that be?
Yeah. It's Antonio Banderas.
Yes. Don De La Vega can lead me anytime.
What you're talking about here is something I really love about this series, which is, and also all new Star Wars canon. They really dive into answering some of these small, potentially pedantic questions about the actual transition from the Republic to the Empire. Palpatine picking out outfits for everybody. And I always joke about that, but it's like at some point he was like, we're going with the gray, tight pants, give it a little hat right here. Like he had to pick this
He had to make the story Bible for the
And
Imperials.
the fact that we have clone troopers transitioning into stormtroopers, talking about how they're the last class of clones. They're shutting down Camino and all that kind of stuff. That was fascinating. And then what you're talking about, Ashley, you're so right. We all grew up, no matter, especially if you grew up 70s, 80s, but it was just accepted. Darth Vader, he's like the main guy. But here you go. He answers to Tarkin. Moti and Tag and everyone are like, whatever, crazy space wizard. We got a Death Star. there's some tension there. No one really knows what to do with him, and Vader, therefore, doesn't really know maybe what to do with himself in this Imperial machine, and it starts right from the beginning, and I really love that Charles Soule just ran with that idea.
I'd love to hear your thoughts. A big part of this series is the idea that Darth Vader is continuing Order 66. Now, I mean, it's obviously, it's logical that not every Jedi would have been killed. There would have been some stragglers. And we meet this guy named Karak, who to me is basically the physicalization of the old expanded universe. In fact, he really, when I saw him in this comic book, he kind of reminded me of the vision I saw in my eye when I first read Heir to the Empire of, like, is it Joris Kaboth? Is that how you say his name? Or
Kaboth, yeah.
We'll never know.
Tim Zahn loves his impronounceable names.
Yeah.
And Ysalarmi around Thrawn's neck. Yeah.
But
thanks, Zahn.
This guy, he basically looks like Zeus on steroids. He has a giant scar.
He's got Rey's hairstyle.
He's got Rey's hairstyle. What do we think about this Jedi Master? Because this is one of the problems I have with this book. This Jedi Master, I almost think, well, I understand the reason why you design story-wise this Jedi Master to face Vader, because Vader is this unstoppable storm. This Jedi Master is a little aggressive for a Jedi.
Well, and they do state, right, that he basically functioned as an assassin, and now he's taken this vow that I can't remember the name of. It starts with a B.
Borash vow, I think.
Yes.
Let's put the
Borash vow.
And so he's living in solitude, and he's meditating, and he's becoming one with the Force to sort of atone for some of his more extreme actions. I like him as a foil for the other master who I know we will get to later on, because you try to defeat him with physical force, and then you try to defeat Vader with knowledge, or dare I say with heart. And I think they both epitomize the extreme versions of what a Jedi can be, and perhaps have to illustrate why the Jedi ultimately kind of fell the way they did and failed. Is he the less interesting of the two? Perhaps on paper, but he looks really cool, and I think their fight is great. So I didn't have a huge problem with him.
I love your take on that, Ashley. I love what you're saying about what it represents, not just now, but what the Jedi were. He was there to fight, and this Bearish Vow is introduced here, and this is also interesting. So this came out, November?
Yes.
2017, and issue 2 is where they introduced that, I believe. That would have been early December.
Right before a movie.
Right before The Last Jedi. And this is an era where speculation runs rampant and everyone's looking for clues. And one thing I have learned as a Star Wars fan over the last 5 years is don't worry about where Darth Plagueis' staff is. Worry about the themes of the story, because that's what the creators are getting there. Some things do connect, some things. But we were going crazy. We were like, oh, Luke must have taken this vow. That's why Luke's on the hill.
Yeah.
He's doing this. And no, this was just to have a pretty good answer as to why this Jedi was still out and about.
That was actually, again, because you're way more in the Star Wars world and in the fan world, that little detail from this series was like picked up on the internet, and they were like, that's what Luke is doing?
Jason, there were think pieces on it.
If you Google the name of this vow, because I did to see if it was created for this, the Reddit threads that still come up exploring this and whether or not it's going to be part of the movies that have not been released at the time of this recording. People really, and it's an interesting concept, but people have really hung their hat on what this means and how it's going to be used. And honestly, it's probably not, because it's in a comic.
Yeah, probably not, but it's interesting. And you brought up something, Jason, that I really want to talk about. Like, it's totally logical that Order 66 would not have taken every Jedi. In fact, it's pretty interesting, and there's some interesting names out there that have officially been determined out. They survived. Quinlan Voss is one that they say, he survived. But I still, every time they introduce one, Jedi Fallen Order, the video game with Cal Kestis is among those. I kind of have this weird, like, do I want another Jedi roaming the galaxy?
I wanted to ask you that, because Jason has a very similar feeling to every time we meet another goddamn Kryptonian, because Superman is supposed to be the last son of Krypton.
And I have the same feeling about the Highlander movies. There should only be one.
Only be one.
There should be none. So, in your opinion, Ken, as our expert and as our super fan, what's like an ideal number of Jedi who survived?
15? No, I don't know. It looks.
So it's quite, your number is quite low.
And that includes Obi Wan and Yoda.
And it includes Ahsoka.
And
Oh
Ahsoka.
yeah,
Ahsoka
that's true. And Canon.
Yeah.
Well,
see, that's the thing. Ezra, Canon. It's not that I don't think other...
I don't count Ezra in that.
Well, but...
Jedis that would have been around.
Jedi and Force
episode.
sensitives are not the same thing.
Correct.
Ooh, okay.
Which Vader's looking for this list of Force sensitive
And technically,
children.
Luke and Leia would have been on that list if you're going that. No,
Yeah.
I'm just talking about, like, for me, it's Jedis or Jedi Padawans.
I can accept, like, hey, there's a Force... The Force is still around, so there's going to be kids going, why did I move that chair by itself? That I can accept.
Yeah.
But so there's an immediate aversion I have to, like, who's this guy? Why did he survive? And they explain it really well, but it does make sense, and I've kind of released myself of that kind of, it's just weird.
Fan righteousness.
It's like I'm gatekeeping for the world. Like I'm like literally in there going, nope, no more Jedi.
Yeah, because the number of Jedi that survived are the number of Jedi that are necessary to serve the story.
Yes. Yeah.
Galaxy's pretty big.
Yeah.
And very smartly, at no point has anyone in Star Wars said the number is 666 or the number is 27 or whatever, which is a problem that X-Men has. They really like to put numbers on their mutant populace.
I'm not super aware of that.
Yeah,
I think that's smart because it serves the story. We don't know what's coming down the line. But this was interesting. The fact that, hey, he is still a Jedi because technically, like Palpatine's saying, you got to take your lightsaber from a Jedi, and like Ahsoka might technically not be a Jedi now, right? Like,
yeah.
Like she resigned. She took the 401k cash out and vacation cash out and left.
She's living with Tom Baker in that good gray Jedi space.
Absolutely. And they need a Jedi, and so to come up with this vow of like, hey, he did something wrong, but not bad, but he's got to go think and ruminate and atone for it. And your vow ends when you feel as though the Force tells you your journey's complete. And this is what he realizes. Oh, I felt the Jedi die. I couldn't get involved. You did it or had something to do with it. Vader's like, yeah, I killed them all. My vow's complete. I'm a Jedi. I'm like, all right, that works. Charles Soule really laid it out well.
You know, another thing that I think that he laid out very well in this series is he has the giant fight with, I've already forgotten the Jedi Master's confusing name.
This guy?
Karak?
Karak Infala.
There you go. Thank you.
Who, by the way, with his hair, Ashley,
yes,
there were Rey's grandfather or father theories based on his hair.
Oh, dear Lord.
Oh, my God. I'm sure there
Stop
were.
it.
I'm sure
Stop
there
it.
were.
I also think The Rock on panel 3 is from Tatooine.
Yeah, same hair. It's the same hair.
Sometimes a pipe is just a pipe.
Yes. I love the beat in at the end of issue 3 to the beginning of issue 4 when this Jedi Master kicks Vader's ass.
He does.
And again, I brought up this idea that Vader is unstoppable. His hatred, he hates himself so much, or he hates that his destiny has been so corrupted. And his force of will allows him to stand back up, but he's missing a leg because, he's mostly robot now. And it goes back to the thing that we've known about Anakin since episode 1, that he's good with building things. And he takes apart that droid and builds himself a new leg and kind of a new lightsaber. And he wins the battle, not really, because of his hate, but also because of his engineering skills, which I was like, that is plumbing the prequel movies for great material for this story.
Yes, because we can't see his adorable haircut, and that's the thing that I know about Anakin Skywalker is he's got that cute 70s hair.
Yeah, Adam Rich hair. 80s enough hair. I had it too.
Yeah, you do also really see the evolution of Vader's costume over the course of this volume.
Yes.
There are a couple different moments, sometimes with the Emperor's blessing, sometimes without, where we see him kind of bloom and grow into the monster that we all know and love. And I thought that was interesting because when it started, I was like, oh, look, we're back with the old, which is actually the new costume.
Yeah.
What an interesting concept.
Yeah, the little subtle changes are interesting to, Vader, if you look at the toy lines, they capture a lot of it too. So I like that there was that one line, I forget exactly, but in one of these issues where Palpatine's like, I'll have the droids. Oh, okay. You want to rebuild it yourself?
Yeah.
All right. Go for it, engineer. I like that.
His corpse is floating in the back to tank, which is something that I had never considered, that Anakin probably has to take those charred stumps out for a good soak every once in a while.
Yeah, which is...
and that's good. I think that added a layer of tragedy that I wasn't expecting for a Darth Vader story.
and we had seen it in Rogue One by the time this came out, and so to just see number one maybe where that kind of began, but I love that idea, right? Like he's just got to stew in his anger and juices and relax in a back to bath or whatever.
I mean, you got to know this right now. Darth Vader smells terrible out of that suit.
He can't smell.
No.
Those nerve endings are gone.
I'm just saying, like, there's that scene in Empire Strikes Back where the guy walks in the chamber, Admiral Viet. Is that correct?
Admiral Piet and General Viet.
Yes, and his helmet's off, and you got to know that he smells necrotic.
Do you think he smells better or worse, per last month's book club discussion, than Rorschach smells under his mask?
Oh, no. I think Rorschach wins that prize.
Well, yeah, because you have to imagine that Vader at least every once in a while goes through some sort of weird sonic scrubber or something.
Puts a salve on it or something.
Yeah, or at least the spritz. Yeah. Whereas like Darth Vader, like you got to know that at some point the Empire like puts an air freshener around Darth Vader or something.
Yeah.
They like after they wax his helmet, they're like, "Here you go, Lord Vader," and he's like, "I shall only wear this for an hour."
Tarkin is not going to let a smelly henchman around. Yeah. On my Star Destroyer, we smell like daffodils. Mm-hmm. Yes.
Ooh, daffodils, good pull.
Stink in my moment of triumph. There's a great 2-page spread in this comic book, and that's something I love about comic books. Mm-hmm. Where Vader corrupts the Kyber crystal, and we see these flashes again. Charles Soule using the memory, and we see these beats of Anakin from Episode 2 carrying his mother. We see Padme. We see a brief image of the Emperor,
and Giuseppe of the impronounceable last name really taking full advantage of the medium to show us some of these important moments in Anakin's life.
Yes, because interestingly enough, there's a little tinge of this, and again, it's only because I've read this entire series. And it's interesting that now I know how this ends, how much Charles Soule is planting. This series of Darth Vader really deals a lot more with the spiritualism of the Force, and especially the dark side. And especially as the series goes on, it kind of leads the series where Darth Vader believes that he can fix his life and his destiny with the dark side. And you see pieces of that in here. You see the beginnings of that in here. And again, I just want to compliment Charles Soule for planning his narrative.
For doing his job.
I love the idea because the new Star Wars canon, you talk about the Kieran Gillen series that came out first, which had some great stuff, and it had Vader learning that Luke Skywalker was alive.
It's one of my favorite moments in Star Wars comics where he cracks the glass.
Cracks it, and it's in the main line and the Vader comic. A lot of great stuff, but they play on this Emperor and Vader kind of always at war with each other, a bad dysfunctional working relationship. But it goes beyond just that to what you're talking about, Jason, the spiritual stuff, and him having a choice, which we might talk about here, of him like having this vision, so to speak, of what I could do. I could say no. I could keep this blade. I could keep it green, kill Palpatine, find Obi-Wan, apologize, bow before him, and redeem myself. He has those thoughts.
That sequence is beautiful.
I will say I love, and this is something that I thought that Revenge of the Sith did very well, although it was mainly carried by Ewan McGregor, more so than Hayden Christensen.
Look, we'll just say right now, Ewan McGregor carries the prequels on his back.
Oh, 100%.
He deserves a back brace for all the work he did.
And he deserves a series, which, hey!
I'm so happy it's finally happening. And if you are listening to this episode in the future and you've already seen it, well, la-dee-da.
Freaking
good for you. All right, anyways.
Time is complicated.
I love that it's a scene with Obi-Wan is the flip of the switch. Like, and it's even a scene where Obi-Wan has empathy for him. And it's like... it's
because Obi-Wan would.
Obi-Wan would. But it's also interesting to note that it's Obi-Wan's empathy that makes Anakin be like, damn it. Like, that's where he breaks it. Like, he doesn't want Obi-Wan's pity. Because he's like, I'm Obi-Wan's equal. I am not a student to him. Which is something that's picked up later.
Anakin's at war with himself, and he's a slave to this pain, and because the pain also fuels power, and he knows he can maybe get what he wants with power. So that's going to be hard to set aside, and there's a lot of things at play here. I love the flashbacks to the big moments in his life, including his mother's death, carrying her body. I love it.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, Anakin just eternally reminds me of being a teenager. Because often as a teenager, you're confused and you're angry, sometimes for legitimate reasons, sometimes just because being a teenager is really hard. And you have the choice between being an angry jerk or trying to do literally anything else. And Anakin kind of spends the rest of his life doing that until he dies and learns in his last moment that is an exhausting way to live.
And he's building off Revenge of the Sith. One of the finer moments in it is, of course, the helmet coming down, right? It's a beautiful shot. It's
finally seen Darth Vader's eyes.
Yeah, and
how he sees the world.
Exactly. And I wrote about this in the book there, where
talk about the book.
Ken,
where can people find your book? By the way,
Why We Love Star Wars. It's available wherever fine books are sold. Audio version as well.
We will include it in our recommended reading along with this comic, so people can get it.
But what I wrote about that moment is, if you break it down and focus on it, like, Hayden plays it well. He's there on the table, and as the helmet's coming down, his eyes kind of widen, right? He's pain and fear, and then, like you said, they show that's the last look he ever takes out of those eyes. Now, does his helmet come off? Yeah, we see that later. But that's the last look Anakin Skywalker, even though he was called Vader at that time, technically. It's the last look he takes, and he is trapped. He's a prisoner, and it's Lucas really just putting on the table. You could be trapped by your decisions. You could be inside here, locked away because of the decisions you make, and that takes Anakin all the way up until his final moments, where he's finally like, I don't want to be trapped anymore. And this comic, to build off that moment, this is where, because I was dubious at first. I was like, I just read this Vader series. I love Darth Vader. I don't know if I want another series. This first issue, where it builds literally off that moment and what was going on, I was like, okay, Charles Soule's got me, because it's playing with those Vader themes.
Now, I want to talk about, we chose to read the first 6 issues, although Marvel is now doing this thing where they only do their storylines 5 issues long instead of 6. Go back to 6, you bastards. So,
give us what we're paying for, because you're charging us the same that you did when you put 6 in a book.
But we're going to talk about the 6th issue, because the 6th issue starts a new storyline, and it introduces a concept that showed up in Star Wars Rebels first, the Inquisitors. Now, I will say that when the Inquisitors were first introduced into Star Wars Rebels, my immediate reaction was, oh, come on. Like, how many, it's the same as the idea of, like, how many Jedi have survived, how many Sith Lords
Jason also doesn't love a trick lightsaber.
Yes. I actually, to be honest with you, I hate this Inquisitor's lightsaber, the one where you just hold the handle still. And like that little lollipop, that motorized lollipop that you find in grocery stores, it just spins, spins the lightsaber so you don't have to do any work. And I hate that lightsaber, but Ken, who is this main Inquisitor that he meets that is later a character in Rebels, who is also, you later learn, a Jedi, a fallen Jedi?
The Grand Inquisitor, he introduced in Rebels, and you know what, I was like you too, Jason. We're similar in this regard for what you're talking about. I was like, I know they need a bad guy. I know Vader can't show up all the time. Is this what they're going with? And there's a whole team of them. Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't like it. I was just like, all right, you got to win me over here. And the show wins it over a little bit.
I agree. I think the show does a great job with it.
Great job. Sarah Michelle Gellar shows up as
the ninth sister?
Ninth sister is the horn lady in this series.
Fifth sister, 12th brother, 19th
I think it's
cousin.
Fifth sister.
Because the seventh sister.
But she's basically Lady Inquisitor.
Yes, a lot of sisters.
Seventh sister, I think, is going to be the one.
Sister, I think, is correct.
Is sister. Seventh
Designing women.
Is in Fallen Order, I think. There's a lot. The numbers are great. But he was a former Jedi temple guard. He was a Jedi. Yeah. But and this they show it. He's looking up at a statue of a temple guard and kind of like, and they touch upon it. Palpatine says like, I found him. He was a Jedi. He felt he was one of the best, but he was a guard and wouldn't be let up into any of the cool places, and he was jealous.
Couldn't read any of the books.
Which
I think is that's the moment that I take most umbrage, and it's a little past the 6 issues, but like the reveal that he wasn't allowed to read the books and share in the knowledge. And I understand that Jedi lore would have, the Harry Potter equivalent, the restricted section, that there would be some sacred text, because in all religions and all paramilitary organizations also have texts and documents that are restricted. I understand that, but the idea that he was never allowed to read anything, I was like, I know you're building this mini arc for this character, but for me that didn't scan.
Can I put a piece of Scotch tape over this as a person who is not even that much invested in Star Wars? my fix for this would be, if you look at how the Jedi are in the prequel series, they are so far up their butt that they cannot see the most powerful Sith Lord of all time is literally 3 blocks away.
Well, they kind of can.
So
but...
to me, those Jedi would lock off the books.
Okay.
Now, 1,000 years ago, it was probably like, here, read it, whatever, because the more you learn, the better you are, and the more with one. But these Jedi, and for me, I've always believed the reason why Palpatine just like wipes out the Jedi is because they're so arrogant that they can't see 3 feet in front of them.
Yeah.
They think they know everything. Even Yoda thinks he knows everything, and then Palpatine like hood boggles them or whatever. Hoodwinks them. There you go.
Boondoggles?
Boondoggles.
I like hood boggles. It's a great game from
hood boggle. Yeah.
But my biggest question that is left when we meet the second master is what happens to our little 2-headed ferret? We never see it again.
Right.
It's real cute.
Yeah.
Also, because I'm reading his Dark Material, so White Ferret shows up a lot. Or maybe it's an Ermine. Who knows?
Well, let's not get too far.
I own a White Ferret.
Let's not get too.
Did you really?
Yeah, my ex-girlfriend had
Share pics.
Before we get too far into the second series and give everybody spoilers, I think we've. Any final thoughts on this series? Anybody wants to give? To be honest with you. I really enjoyed it. I was with you, Ken. I did not think that Marvel would be able to pull off a second Darth Vader series that I think would be able to match the quality of the first one. But I think because they chose a different route, a different time period, it has a different feel. And because of that, I think it's enjoyable.
I think I love the time period between Revenge of the Sith and New Hope. I think it's fertile ground for telling stories of the rebellion against the Empire.
And Kenobi.
Very much. Yes, I cannot wait for that series because reasons. And I think this was great. And because Charles Soule had, I don't know if it was if the 25 issues was the number that was already planned, but he definitely had his story plan. And this goes into, the series goes into some weird spots. I wasn't, I'm going to say not a huge fan, but I am not a big Old Republic person. Like, I want to know some of it, but I don't get lost in it. So there were some reveals on that was like, okay, cool. But it ends so well. It ends where it begins, and it's the most complete story of all the Marvel Star Wars that's out now.
Yes.
Or it has been out since 2014.
Interesting. I think this is a really good volume, and I'm continually impressed that Star Wars comics are good because the original Star Wars comic is very bad.
Who's the giant green rabbit?
Jax.
Yeah.
Jackson. He's called Jason, basically.
Yeah, that's from the original Star Wars Marvel comics.
And I know that series is beloved now, but it's incredible to me every time that they manage to pull off a halfway decent story and then introduce characters that resonate. We don't get a Dr. Aphra introduced in this series. I don't think we get a character introduced on that level who's that cool.
Right.
But when we do meet original characters, I think their purpose for existing is well conceived, and that's what I appreciate, because in many more official Star Wars capacities, we've met characters who were ill-conceived. And so the fact that this brings us cool new characters and tells us something more interesting about Darth Vader than we already knew, it's a win across the board.
All right, so real quick, Ken, our rating score on this podcast is intern Cat Brago. Okay. GHL intern Cat, who doesn't do anything, but we pay him so much money.
Is currently hiding from Ken.
He's currently hiding. We don't know where he is. That is our rating scale. Based on a scale of 1 to 5 Bragos, 5 being the best, what would you give? Hold on, what's this long title?
Star Wars, Darth Vader, Dark Lord of the Sith, Volume 1, Imperial Machine.
How do you remember that?
She's great.
I'm very smart.
That is one heck of a hood boggle if I've ever heard one.
That's a hood boggle.
I'm gonna make that word stick.
I will. So what is it? Bragos?
Yep.
4.
5 being the best, 1 being the worst.
These particular 6 issues in the beginning of the series, 5 out of 5 Bragos.
Whoa.
The overall series, I go down to 4.5 at times. It went into places that was a little weird for me, but overall, wow, what an ending. So 4.5 overall, 5 straight up 5 Bragos.
Ashley, how do you feel?
I think this first volume is good. I think the next 6 issues are better. So I'm going to go, because I did read both volumes, I'm going to give this 4 Bragos because I like the second Jedi Master better. I think she's cooler. But like I said, when we did our previous summary, I like this a lot. So Jason, it's up to you. Are you giving it 4 or 5 Bragos?
I'm giving it 4. I loved the previous volume 1, Darth Vader.
Which very much hangs over this series and is inescapable.
And I kind of think this is a step a slight step down, not by much, but I just think the previous volume was so much more emotional and thematic than this one, whereas this one seems more like the action series, which is, there's nothing wrong with that. Again, different tone, but because of that, it steps a little bit down. Okay, so everybody, we just want to tell you that before we get into our next section, you can support us on our Patreon because you're going to go over there to patreon.com/Jawiin. That's Jawiin. It's the same spelling as always because we're going to do a Geek History Lesson Extra podcast with Ken talking about what we think are some of the best Star Wars comics ever. So you want to go over there and check that out because it's the only way you can support this podcast and get some cool exclusive content like Crisis Club, our 12-part video series, even our extra podcast, Jason and Ashley's Extra Adventures. That's where we make all this extra stuff as a thank you to you. And it's the only place on the internet, I'm telling you right now, it's the only place on the internet where you can hear Ken's thoughts on Star Wars. Right, Ken? It's the only place. You don't talk about Star Wars comics anywhere else. See, I swear to God, it is the only place. We are not trying to hoodboggle you. Okay. Patreon.com/Jawiin, Jawiin. But fun fact over there, actually, every time we do a book club, every patron, even from the $1 level all the way up, can give us questions for the book club, and we answer them on the book club episodes.
Ooh.
So we got a bunch of those right now.
Nice.
The first one, Ashley, you want to read it off here?
Yes. So our first question comes from Nicholas Baldwin. This month we actually had people ask multiple questions, which is kind of cool. Nicholas asks, you will probably already cover this. Okay. But do you overall like the idea of extending canon and learning more about Vader or other characters, or do you prefer to leave a mystery and keep it in the movies only?
This is a good question. I like the big answers to come in the movies and, well, now TV. But I think it's important in the comics to fill in some of the blanks on the side, play in the shadows, and all of these things connect. If they do their job, they connect thematically and emotionally to what's going on, and then it just kind of busts it out. I don't know if I ever want, well, I'll tell you what. So the reveal that, excuse me, of Vader finally learning, that was a big canon moment.
Yeah,
it came in a comic, and it worked really well for me.
I think that's okay.
I'm being force choked.
Do you need a Vader respirator, Ken?
He'll be Darth Napzok by the end of this. I think you nailed it. I have said many times in many places that I don't think you should have to engage with any outside material. Star Wars is a movie franchise first and foremost, so I think that if that's all you want to engage with, I think that should be fine. But I do love it when this extracurricular extended universe stuff can give us something different and can give us something insightful, whether that's an emotional storyline or a story reveal.
Okay, so the next question comes from Nadia Bethia, who says, would you want to see a Vader TV show? If yes, do you want to see it more like Charles Soule's Darth Vader book or Karen? Is it Kieran?
It's Kieran because he's a boy. Karen Gillan is the cute redhead from Doctor Who.
But they're often mistaken. I would like to answer this.
Okay, you could go first.
Yeah, I'm gonna just.
Jason very generously asked the questions. Let's go.
Yes,
first.
I'm gonna hood boggle my way in. And with that word, I'm gonna make it swim.
Let's put it on a t-shirt.
Yes, hood boggle. Yes. My answer would be no. My answer to this actually would be, I think this would be better off as a movie. The reason why I say that is because Vader is a hard character, I think, to see over an extended period of time. When you add up all of
his face doesn't move?
Yes, that's partly that. But also Vader is interesting because he's mysterious. Because he's silent, because we don't know who he is. Now, the difference between a movie and a television show is that a television show, you have to talk a lot. You have to talk a lot more. A movie can be more action-based and be just fine. And also, a movie can be more silent and it can be fine. A television show does not operate that way. Because we are in a more comfortable environment, television shows are more talky so that you do not get bored with them. But in a movie theater, we are more willing to take silence because it's more of an event. So that's why I think if you're going to have a movie where Vader, or you're going to have an instance of live action where it's Vader hunting down Jedis, just give me 2 solid hours, kind of like a Rogue One. It's a one shot, and then nothing else.
Can I pose a solution to your problem?
Sure.
So My immediate reaction is no, absolutely not. No, we've had 6, 7 Darth Vader movies now. Please stop. But I think for all the reasons that Jason stated, I think a smarter idea would be to do Obi Wan, Ahsoka, Dr. Aphra, and have him play an important supporting role. I just think the way that character is constructed, he doesn't function as a protagonist.
I have a weird hope that actually Dr. Aphra gets a Disney Plus series, that they make her one of the first characters to ever translate into live action, because
cast Kelly Hu as Dr. Aphra, you cowards.
And it's still my hope that that somebody over there makes an Ahsoka movie of some type.
Yeah, me too.
I apologize, I'm coughing here in the background, listeners, because I've been force choked all day thinking about Darth Vader. I think both of you are right. I'll take a lot of things you both said and put it into one. As much as I love Vader, it works in comics, it works in books, because we can get into that internal monologue.
Yes.
Get the conflict. I mean, New Hope, his screen time is mere minutes in the film, right? And I think you're onto something with him appearing in another series, and I'll say it right now, put a lot of money that he's the main driving force, and not main driving force. He's a key part of the Kenobi series.
Oh, that's interesting, because our next question goes right into that.
Also from Nadia Bethia, who asks, in the Obi-Wan series, would you want to see Obi-Wan and Darth Vader meet? Because there are hints in Return of the Jedi that they meet between Revenge and New Hope.
All right, Ken, so I want to hear, this is the first I've heard about this, that are there some theories out there? Again, at the time of this recording, nobody here knows anything about Kenobi, and nothing's been announced. So if you're listening to this far, far in the future, hello, future people. Sorry. Ken, what are this? Is there a theory out there that Vader is going to be the main villain antagonist?
I'm going to say it's more than a theory, Jason. It's what my belief is, that it's the key. Because it's fertile ground. So she is, who asked, Nadia asked, she, very insightful comment, Nadia, because in Return of the Jedi, Vader, the way Vader's describing it, Obi-Wan once thought as you did. If you go back to episode 4, Obi-Wan's not saying to Darth Vader, hey, there's some good in you. He's like, hey, I'm here to fight you. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people forget that. Like, you know, because one of the complaints I hear when I say on air or off air, I think Kenobi series will be about Kenobi going to face Vader one last time. The thought is, what? That takes away from New Hope, and that's never been addressed. And I think if you go to Return of the Jedi, that literally is an open door. Obi-Wan once thought as you did. When did he think that? Because he didn't think it on the Death Star. And he didn't, all right, you could say Mustafar, but there seems to be something else there. And how it works for me, and I'm sorry, I'll probably talk a little too long and I'll start hacking again.
Nah, you'll be fine.
Joseph Scrimsh and I have, on Force Center have talked a lot about this, and Joseph's a big Obi-Wan fan.
Wait. What's this Force Center you talk about?
Apparently I talk about Star Wars elsewhere, I guess.
Okay. Can this podcast be found in all the podcast listening places?
Yes, Force Center podcast feed, yes. Look at it this way. Obi-Wan goes into hiding. He doesn't, when we see him again in story, in Star Wars Rebels, we see him. He's accepted what he's there for, right? I'm here to protect the future. I'm here to protect Luke. When he goes there, yes, he knows that's his duty, but you're going to tell me that he's going to sit there by the campfire and go, man, how did the Jedi just lose?
As a 30-something-year-old young man? Yeah.
I think 40. I think 40, right?
He's got to get to...
I'm not going to pretend like I understand anyone's ages in Star Wars.
Ages work a lot different on Tatooine. Apparently.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, he has a rough 16 years.
Two twin sons. But he's got to be sitting there going, how did we lose? We're the Jedi. We're the good team. Our hubris took us away. And I didn't kill Anakin. I left him there burning, and now I'm feeling disturbances in the Force and all those things going on. You can tell me that he doesn't want to take one more shot to go try to correct that wrong. And I'm not saying kill Vader. I'm saying save him. And when he fails, because we know he fails, coming back, and that's the next chapter of his life, is accepting that that path is done, and the future is this boy I'm protecting. That's a fertile ground for story.
Ask you, this is interesting. Okay, so I'm really excited for the Kenobi series because, again, Obi Wan Kenobi, my favorite Star Wars character.
Yeah.
I had never considered this idea that Obi-Wan would be like, I can go save this guy. But let me ask you this. Because just from the way my writer brain works, this series really needs to take place, in my head, 10 years after Revenge of the Sith. Because I think...
also, Ewan is quite a bit older.
Ewan is older now.
Yeah.
But also the idea that I think it's better if there's some distance off of Revenge of the Sith. I don't like if this picks up like 2 years after Revenge of the Sith, then it's not satisfactory.
We
to
have
me.
that answer. It's about 7.
Oh, it's a set. Oh, they know
That's
exactly.
hysterical because Star Trek Discovery is 7 years
7
before
years.
TOS.
That's okay. Perfect.
So enough
perfect.
time to.
But also,
enough time for a Saturn return
but
for all
also
the
so
astrology
that
people.
because you know this scene's going to happen. Because also there's going to be some scene where Obi-Wan sees boy Luke.
Oh yeah.
They're going to film that scene.
I hope Joel Edgerton comes back because
Oh, Joel Edgerton. Bless.
Uncle Owen.
Because there in the from a certain point of view anthology of stories, there's a great story there of Obi-Wan's watch and he's leaving toys for young Luke. Beru's taking them. She's like, Obi-Wan's nice, and Uncle Owen's like, to hell with them, and doesn't even take his help to defend against like Tusken Raiders or people that are coming to cause problems on the farm. And I hear a lot of people like, no, the Obi-Wan series is probably going to be like, there's going to be some like pirates or something like. There's no high stakes in Obi-Wan fighting pirates with his fists on Tatooine.
I agree with you. Although for a while
we
there,
could see that, but
when they were talking about making this a Kenobi film, I really thought they were going to do something like, a Fistful of Dollars with Obi-Wan, like where it was going to be like this one-off adventure. But it's interesting. Yeah, you're correct. For an 8-episode show, he's leaving the planet. Like there's just no way he does it.
I think he leaves the planet. And,
now let me ask. Sorry.
And I think it has to be what gets Obi-Wan off the planet to fight pirates, smugglers. It's Anakin Skywalker.
Yes. And it's interesting too because Obi-Wan and Yoda are two of the 3 characters besides Palpatine who actually know that Darth Vader is Anakin. Like because they see that recording where Emperor says Darth Vader. Yeah. So even if Obi-Wan hears the noise of Darth Vader, he knows exactly who it is.
If he's in Chaman's Cantina, and I think he's got a bit of a drinking problem, and he's there drowning in his sorrows, and space pirates and smugglers and spice traders are going, there's some guy named Vader running around. You think he's not going to be like, I should have killed him. I should have killed him there. And I bet it's and Star Wars Rebels, one of the great moments is with the the Obi-Wan and Maul fight is amazing. But when Ahsoka and Vader face off, and she cracks his helmet.
Yes.
If you watch that scene over and over as I did, because again I wrote about it, he at one point he calls her name, right? It's Vader. It's like Ahsoka. Then it is clearly Matt Lanter as Anakin going Ahsoka, and I think in that moment she almost wins. I think there's a moment where if you read this comic that we just talked about, I think there's a moment where he's going, save me. And then the pain takes over and then the evilness takes over and she knows in that moment, she recognizes it. She's kind of like that. She sees Anakin. She sees the eye of Anakin. She hears the voice of Anakin. That's in there. If she feels that, you can't tell me Obi-Wan doesn't think I can do this. I can right this wrong. That's fertile ground. That's high stakes.
Ken, you just made me super excited for the Disney Plus Kenobi series, and to be honest with you, the Kenobi thing right now is about the only thing that might make me sign up for Disney Plus. To be honest with you, so
we'll know soon. Mandalorian, give Mandalorian.
If you're having a watch party, I'll come over. How about that? All right, everybody. Thank you so much for your Patreon questions. Those were really great. Nadia, you are kicking it. Nicholas, you kicked it as well.
Stuff.
And Kareem Fowler had a comment on there as well. That was really good. All right. Recommended reading for this month. That's where you go to our website, geekhouse.com/recommended reading. It's obviously going to be this book, what's the title of that, Ashley?
Star Wars, Darth Vader, Dark Lord of the Sixth, Volume 1, Imperial Machine.
That's a hood boggle if I've ever heard it. Okay.
We will also put Why We Love Star Wars by our esteemed guest.
Yes. Before we get too much further into the honor roll, which of course you guys know all about, we've been talking about this action figure spotlight that you guys are loving. I don't know if anybody's actually loving it, but I say you love it. There's this Darth Vader action figure that I've had for a very, very long time. And it is from the Star Wars...
Jason is currently holding it in his hand, podcasting famously a visual medium.
Before I'm waving it around, you can hear it. Before we started this podcast, Ashley was like, what's your action figure spotlight? And I was like, and I grabbed it. So in the Power of the Force line, Kenner, 3 3/4, they made this Darth Vader action figure that is based on Darth Vader in Return of the Jedi, and you can pop off his helmet and you can see the original older actor who played him.
I'm going to grab it.
Yeah, and you can also take off his arm so that you can actually have Luke chop off his arm. It is the first action figure they ever made where they allowed you, they had Vader's face underneath it, because they've made other figures where Vader's helmet's already off, but this is the first one that could actually take his hand off. I've had it for a long time. It's a great action figure. That is Action Figure Spotlight. We'll be sharing some stuff about that.
That's great.
On there. All right, so now we are entering the GHL Honor Roll. That's where if you guys go to iTunes, you leave us a 5-star review, helping us in the the Apple Podcast algorithm. You know, you can insult us. You can talk about Brago. You can say, Ken was...
You insult Brago, I will come to your house and I will fight you with a lightsaber.
You heard that, Hoodboggle. You better watch out. You can write Hoodboggle, and we will read it on the air. Ashley, do we have... I'm just going to say this. We have an ongoing thread, Ken. This is a joke that you're not going to understand, but our listeners are going to love it. I can see by our podcast analytics that we have a lot of listeners in Perth, Australia.
Well, these are all domestic.
I'm waiting for a review from Perth, Australia.
Perth.
Now, if you are listening to this podcast, please email us your iTunes review, because international, reviews, at geekhistoryLesson@gmail.com. We've had another review from Australia, but the gentleman did not live in
from
Perth.
Brisbane.
I know there are people from Perth.
I want to say shout out to the person who left us a 1-star review and just wrote sorry. I marked it as not helpful because that's not a review, but I thought it was funny. Our first person joining the honor roll today is Ryan Rains, good Twitter buddy, who says, enroll in this Mind University. These professors know how to work, and that's a RuPaul style work. I love you for that. Jason and Ashley know how to teach a class in the art of geek, whether it's a lesson on a character, a list episode, or a holiday special. Their creativity and smarts make this seasoned comic fan learn something new every episode. Favorite episodes of mine are Teen Titans, West Coast Avengers, dun dun dun, Miles Morales, Mr. Miracle, and top 5 single issues to read. I also wouldn't mind a Donna Troy lesson. This is one university I never want to graduate from, and a university I don't owe a massive amount of debt to. Go forth and slay, Professor Ashley and Professor Jason. Love, longtime supporter, first-time reviewer, Ryan.
I'm sending an invoice to Ryan as we speak.
Ryan's also a very sweet patron, so I think he might be paid up.
Ryan's awesome. That's awesome.
Yes. Joining Ryan is also Cam Sense, another lovely Twitter and patron friend, who says, the best school in the multiverse. This podcast really helped me jump into comics. Yay! When I was younger, I only picked up comics from the quarter bins and never exactly knew what was going on. Other than that, I loved comics. When I grew up, I found going to a comic shop a little intimidating because I had zero knowledge of comics. Other than that, I thought Daredevil and Spider-Man were dope. Well, you and Jason would have got along. With this podcast, I've been able to jump in. Thank you to Ashley for really making me appreciate Tim Drake and Bart Allen as some of my favorite sidekicks of all time. Also, thank you, Jason, for repeatedly recommending Ultimate Spider-Man and 52, because those are my favorite series of all time. Thank you for doing what you do. And then the last person joining them is Cop Don 23, who says, enjoyable and interesting. I love these guys. They know their information. Thank you for sharing your knowledge with the Geek History class. Could you do a list discussion on your top 5 DC comics of all time? Thank you for doing what you do. I think we might have done one of those by now. We're behind on our reviews.
All right. Thank you so much for those reviews, guys. Go to iTunes, leave a 5-star review if you want to be read on the air just like them. Ken,
yes, sir.
Real quickly, where can everybody find you on the internet, and where are all the podcasts that you do? Because you do a lot of them, sir.
I do a lot, sir. Just follow me at Ken Napzok. Go to kennapzok.com. From there, you can link to where to get my book, Why We Love Star Wars, where to listen to the Afternoons with Josh and Ken, which is temporarily hosted by Josh's wife, Amanda, now that Josh is off working on something cool. Force Center, Casterly Talk for Game of Thrones, Napzok Files, a lot of stuff out there, but it's part of what we do. Once you love talking, you get in that rhythm and you can't stop.
Well, Ken, I love having you on the podcast. Thank you so much. You bring so much insight, and I'll be there whenever The Mandalorian airs every night.
You'll
every
come
night.
by?
Yeah, I'll come by. I'm just going to come in the back window, and
she came in through the bathroom window.
Nice, even if nobody's there.
Those 2 little dogs will let Ken know they
yeah, one will bite you.
Yeah. Everybody, you can follow this podcast on Twitter at GHL Podcast, on Facebook at facebook.com/Geek History Lesson. You can follow me on Twitter at Jawiin, Jawiin. Please make Hoodboggle a real word. You can follow Ashley on Twitter at Ashley V. Robinson. Thank you all so much for listening. This has been Geek History Lesson. I am Jason Kyber Crystal Inman.
I am Ashley Victoria Robinson. And Professor Jason, would you please dismiss the class?
Class is dismissed.